helping people to transform their workplace. Are you stuck? Do you need to get unstuck? What is stuck? Who's stuck? What are we stuck in? Well, our guest today, Julie Bartkus, is on the HR and Leadership Spotlight show and is going to tell us all about it. Julie, welcome to the show today.
Thank you so much. It's so good to be here with you.
Yes, awesome. I'm excited to have you here. I want to talk about getting stuck, I don't want to get stuck, right? But I want to talk about maybe I'm stuck. I don't know it,
Right. Some people don't.
Well, exactly. So I want to talk about stuck, unstuck. I know your tagline is helping people transform their workplace. But I noticed how you didn't say helping managers transform the workplace. So I really like the little subtlety there. I want to talk about that, the detox method, and a number of things, and find out all about who Julie Bartkus is. But before we do that, did you bring anything for us today?
Oh, you mean my little token here? Yeah, I did. So this is my big cup of courage, which I think all of us need, as we navigate our way through life. And this was a cup that I purposely sought out and had to order because it also has some messages on it that says you can handle it. And on the inside, it says the strength lies within.
I love
And
that.
that's something that I'm always working with our leaders and our folks on is how to really draw that strength from within. So you have the ultimate courage so that you can handle it.
I love that. Get your cup of courage, folks. Get your cup of courage.
Big cup.
Yeah,
not just
like
a small
that.
sip, just a big cup.
Yeah, but in the metaphor that I see that as an empty cup, right? And everyone's going to have their version of courage that they're going to put in there that they're going to drink from and use to, I guess, supercharge themselves. Correct?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it is an empty cup, and you have to decide, hey, what's going to go in this cup that's going to help really fuel me. And, my life has been about navigating through change. And this cup I sought out after an especially difficult change in my life. And I just felt that I needed this cup and I needed to look at it daily to remember, where the strength comes from and that I can handle this.
Sure.
And in a lot of our workplaces, we're going through things that we're questioning. Can we handle this? Do I need to switch gears? So I think there's ways to bring ourselves back to that passionate place to where we're charged up to be able to handle life as we're being dealt the cards right now in current times.
Awesome. So before we get into all of this, and I even had some thoughts about change, and but tell us who Julie Bartkus is. Tell us who you are, who you've been, where you've come from, and how you got to where you are today.
Oh my goodness, there's so many different avenues I could take with that question. I will give you this version, is that my life has been filled with change from the get-go. I remember being very young and going to school one day, and I was, in sharing a room with my sister, and then I would come home and I'd have my own room, or I'd be in another room with a different sister. So it seemed that my life was always about navigating through this change, and change became something that fascinated me as I moved through childcare, working there, into retail, into corporate, and then back consulting with business leaders across the globe. It's really about how we navigate through that change, but it's also, to me, it's been a journey of personal growth that enhances myself professionally. To me, the two cannot be separated. We really have to look at the whole picture.
Okay. So, when I think of change, and it is, it's almost like exercise, to build muscle, to build stamina.
I was just thinking that.
Yeah. To build, and you may be looking at, and the audience probably looking at me thinking, Chuck looks so chiseled. What's going on? Well, I just started going back exercising again, but getting a trainer and start working out. And, you have those pains, right? Today we're working on squats and, this and that, working on the legs and the thighs. So then the next couple of days you're like, ouch. Oh, but eventually you keep doing it. It's pain. It's good pain, as long as it's managed pain. And maybe I might overdo it a little bit. Sometimes I'm not going to do it enough, but you want to do it. But the change is what stretches those muscles, makes us, grow and builds that stamina. Correct?
That's so true. And I actually you must have been browsing my Facebook page, because I just made a post the other day that I said, pain associated with healing is so much better than pain associated with deterioration.
Wow.
And many people who follow me know that I've just had some major hip surgery, just 2 weeks. I'm 2 weeks post-op. And I was thinking about all the pain that I was in before, and then thinking about the pain after surgery. And I'm like, yeah, but this pain that you feel after surgery is still better because it's healing. But the same thing is true even in our organizations and our workplaces, is that if we're on the deterioration path, we feel pain. We feel that something's not quite right in our heart and our spirit or in our relationships with other people. But once we get on this path of healing, the pain shifts, and it still hurts, kind of like your exercise program, because chances are you have pain even if you're not working out. It's like, oh, your back hurts a little bit trying to stand up, or picking up the kids, or whatever it might be. You can't make that mile walk. You have pain, but it's more pain associated with your body deteriorating or not functioning correctly. But you start to exercise and those muscles kick back into gear, and it's like, woo, okay, I feel this. But now it's a whole different pain, because it's a pain that's propelling you in the direction of a goal that you want to achieve.
Yeah. So stalking you on your Facebook site, I don't know who that is. But,
right.
So
it's just to do the mental connection.
So there's so many directions I want to go. So I would guess pain and transformation in the workplace is along those same lines, correct? Talk about that.
Oh, it totally is, and especially as I work with leaders, I work with their entire teams, you could see the pain in people's eyes. You could feel it in their hearts, but nobody knows what to do about it. So they feel, and here's the thing, is that many of us will check out mentally before we check out physically. So in an organization, we have employees who could become quite robotic when they start feeling the pain. They're just going through the motions. So they're not really tied in with the purpose and the vision and really on board and excited. They're just hanging on by a rope. And they've checked out a long time ago because the pain became intense. And where did that pain come from? Well, it could come from a plethora of different places. But the biggest thing to realize, especially as a leader, if you're tuning into this, is that, if we're on the path of destruction or deterioration, there is pain. So maybe there was lack of trust in the organization that happened, or something happened to break trust. Maybe somebody even got fired that we didn't understand. That's change. And as you know, Chuck, from your work, is that when one person gets let go or fired, it's like 20 to 30 other people, depending on the size of your organization, are impacted. So it doesn't just stop with that one person who had that negative experience. Now it's something in the terms of mindset that everybody's carrying around with them.
Yeah. I teach a transition to supervisory class, people that are maybe, buddy to boss type of thing.
Okay.
And I
talk
like
about buddy to boss.
Yeah. And I talk about that change process. Like, you were their friend yesterday, today you're their boss. I said, There's going to be a change process. They may have loved you. And now you're like, why don't they love me? Well, there's a change. Or you go into a new team. They may have hated their old boss. They may have loved their old boss. I don't know. But there's a change, and there's a process they're going to go through no matter what. And it's that change that, if you can understand it and weather yourself through, you will come out better on the other side.
Yeah. And if we could cultivate a culture where people are truly excited and enthusiastic about change, things can become so different. But most people are dragging their feet with change. And I remember one time when I first started motivational speaking many, many moons ago, I was pulled into this organization where it was recovering drug addicts and alcoholics. And they wanted me to come in. They wanted to boost their motivational ratings for the groups that they were having with these guys who were fresh off drugs and alcohol. And I remember, well, they've got to get used to the change. They've got to adapt to the change. So I went into this meeting filled with like 100 sweaty guys. And one day I was just like, all right, I need you all to do something to show life that you want to change. And I asked them to simply get up and find a different chair to sit in. This process became almost the whole meeting, where it was like the complaining, the dragging their feet, the who do they want to sit next to? They just got comfortable looking at what they have to let go of. So it was really fascinating to me that just asking them to do this one simple thing required so much effort. So if one simple thing like that in our organizations or in our life requires so much effort, imagine all the change that's going on, especially right now, all the time. And if we're not acclimating our people to the change that's transpiring, they're going to be humming and hawing and complaining and blaming and going through all those emotions of not being able to let go of things that were there if they don't get excited about the change that's transpiring.
Right. So I noticed that you, and folks, I'll have this in the show notes too, offer a free Getting Unstuck consultation. So, I mean, I'm guessing people are stuck in maybe pain. People are stuck on their chair. What are people? That's what I'm thinking based on what you're talking about. When I think stuck, what are you talking about stuck? And how do we get unstuck? That's a longer question on how to get unstuck. Let's just define stuck.
Stuck to me is really more so than where you're at physically. It's where you're at mentally and where you're prepared to go. So I remember my first marriage. So I've been divorced, I've been widowed. And in my first marriage, it was turned into an abusive relationship. And I didn't, it was just kind of one of those things where it's like, whoa, wait a second. I didn't know we were heading in this direction. But we were. And I started thinking to myself, well, where are you broken? What about you attracted this relationship? And I started really looking at myself in a different way. And then I started realizing the thoughts that I was thinking that was going to keep me stuck again. And it was like, oh, these are the kind of relationships that you get into. This always happens to you. You're not worthwhile of this. And I remember taking myself out on dates to the bookstore. Barnes and Noble, Borders became my best friend at the time. And I remember all these books calling to me, The Roads Less Traveled and Ogmandino and Zig Ziglar and all of these amazing people, Les Brown. Their books really started speaking to me. And I remember one day when my husband at the time, we were going through the divorce process, I remember sitting in a corner with these books in a dark room with a little flashlight and a yellow highlighter. And I remember reading these books, highlighting things like love is as love does, and you are not a tree condemned to a small plot while the wind and world abuses you by Ogmandino in one of his books. And I remember highlighting these things, and I started thinking to myself, wait a second, like Norman Vincent Peale says, if you could change your thoughts, you could change your world. And for me, in that moment, I realized how stuck I was with my thoughts. Sitting in that dark corner of the room with a flashlight and a highlighter, thinking I needed to be there in the first place, was part of it, as opposed to like, wow, this is what I'm going through. But the moment I realized that I had the power to change my thoughts, I also realized that I was empowering myself to propel, to get out of stuck mode and into a mode that would serve me for the rest of my life. So that was a huge moment of awakening for me when I'm like, oh, I'm stuck because of the thoughts I'm thinking. Oh, I'm stuck because of the thoughts I'm dwelling on. And now I can move forward by thinking new thoughts that are going to tell me a new story about my life, about the direction that I'm going.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love, the Zig Ziglar, I remember reading early on before, the internet and all that, Zig Ziglar books. And I one of my favorite stories is where you remember the milkman. We'd have a milkman. I don't know if you ever had them up in Chicago, right? Do you have
I
milkman
was
come?
accused of being the milkman's child.
Oh, yeah.
I was the
And,
blonde kid. My sisters were brunettes. They're like, you're the milkman's. So I think we had a milkman for a very short period of time.
so well, you would go out and especially in the summer, they'd put the milk in the milk box and it was glass. And so back in the day, you'd open up the milk box out of the front stoop porch, you'd pick it up and it's wet, it's condensation, and it was always slippery. So when I was a kid, my mom always said, you take a tea towel and you dry it off and then you pick up the milk jug. Well, Zig Ziglar tells a story about how when he was a kid, he picked up the milk jug and it slipped out of his hands, and how he was so upset. I broke, and he's just standing there, look at the milk. He's so upset, and if I paraphrasing the story, and I guess that his mother came out and said, okay, you're looking at the milk, you're looking at the glass, you're not gonna do anything different by just standing there looking at that stuff. You're gonna learn from this experience. It's gonna change you, right? You're gonna move and move on. But if you clean up the glass, clean up the milk, and move on, transform yourself. So next time it doesn't happen. I just, when I think about that, I hear Zig Ziglar, I think of that story, and there's a couple others that come to mind, but
and that's a powerful one, because that looks at, there you are looking at a mess.
Yeah.
And a lot of times in our organizations and our companies, we're looking, or as a manager, we're feeling like, hey, this is a mess. What do you do? And we spend a lot of time sometimes looking at that mess. So the story just really illustrates, hey, clean up the mess, learn from it, and then do something different next time. And that's what we all have to do. And that's a powerful lesson right there in terms of navigating through a change that you're going to be making. Yeah, I made this mess. Yeah, I'm going to clean it up, and I'm going to do it differently. And sometimes I even use the analogy that, this is, if I'm dealing with a current mess or a current situation or a change I have to make, I'm like, all right, this is a mess old Julie made. Now, new Julie, is empowered and skilled to clean this up very nicely. And going forward, we know differently.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but sometimes I guess as companies, as organizations can't, because they're toxic, right? They have some sort of toxic culture, toxic workplace in a way. And you're big on detox. Right? So talk to me about detox.
Detoxing. Detoxing is really about removing things that are not working from your workplace. So instead of saying, oh, my staff is not motivated, I'm going to go and buy them donuts, or we're going to motivate them with chocolate, or we're going to throw other incentives like cash or whatever it is at them. It's really looking deep into an organization to say what's not working. It's looking at a leadership style and saying what's being modeled from the top down that's not working and causing this chain of destructive things to unfold among our team. Because here's the thing that's really interesting to me. This is so fascinating to me, is you hire somebody, and if you did at least a half a decent job of hiring, as you're going to have somebody who's excited to start. They're looking forward to starting. They're telling their friends and family they just got this job, and woo, right, throwing a party, going out to having a little drink to celebrate. Woo,
exactly.
But then they start on the job, and it could be an hour later. It could be a day later. It could be a week later, and something changes. Now, in the companies that are doing it right, the positive feelings can increase. But what we find most often happens is that it starts decreasing, and it starts this downward spiral. And it's because of what's going on in the workplace. So we have to understand, what is the foundation for what we're putting forth here that everything else is being built upon. So detox is really looking like, how do we clean up the foundation so that when somebody comes into the workplace and they're so excited, they keep getting more excited day after day after day after day, as opposed to, oh, it's being depleted. Now they don't have a positive relationship with their supervisor, or their schedule was changed without notice, or they were yelled at in front of a customer, whatever it might be, that depletes their motivation. So that's what we really want to look at with detoxing, is what is it that we need to remove so that these people that we hire stay enthusiastic, and so that we can transform the ones that we have in place.
Love that. And you have a way to remember detox and that
Detox.
concept, correct?
Yeah, so we do have an acronym that detox stands for, and we'll see how many people can remember this. But if you like, I could go through each letter, and then you can let me know what intrigues you and what you'd like to talk a little bit more about. But detox really stands for desire, energy, transformation, open.
Transformation. And what is that?
Open.
Wow.
Open. Ooh. And X, there's so many words that start with X. So the best I came up with was the X factor. X factor. That is the it factor that's going to make a difference in your workplace, in your organization.
Sure. So desire is the willingness or wanting to have some sort of change or transformation, correct? I would think.
Yeah, that's definitely a part of it, but more so it's looking at, especially if you're a manager or even as an employee, what is it that you truly desire? And when I'll take you to a time when, I said I was divorced and widowed. When my second husband died, he died instantly and he died suddenly. And I remember after he passed away, standing in the middle of our 1904 barn house, old farmhouse. And I remember thinking to myself, how did I get here? And it was a moment in my life where I felt like everything was just stripped away from me, right? Everything that I knew, everything that I did everything for was gone. My stepson had moved out. My mother-in-law was panicking. She lived in the downstairs apartment that we had, and she was packing her dishes in the middle of one night. And my husband had left. He had passed away instantly and suddenly. And I'm standing there, me and my dog, I'm like, how did I get here? Is this even what I want? And what is it that I want? And so often, especially when we're managing a team, we forget what it is that we truly want, what it is that we want to bring to life. So there's a direct correlation. And we could even do that personally, where everything that we do starts becoming about our organization operating effectively. Mm-hmm. So to me, to make the detox work, you've really got to get in touch with what is it that you desire personally and professionally. So one of the exercises that I take my clients through is the process of creating a desire wall or a desire book. And this is exactly what I did. I put this into practice when I was standing there in the middle of my old house, just looking around saying, how did I get here? How did I get here? And anytime a desire hit me of something that defined me, something that I wanted, I took out a 5x7 Post-it note and I wrote it down on that Post-it note and I put it up on my wall. And I said, okay, these are the things that are going to make me up, because these are the things that are not only going to make you effective as a leader, but these are also those self-care items that you need to take full responsibility for implementing in your life so that your cup stays full as you need it to be, so that you can effectively lead your team. Because a lot of times we're leading, trying to get validation from the people who are working for us or the people we're surrounding ourselves with, when in fact, we should really be getting our validation from the goals that we're setting. And maybe one of those goals is a happy and motivated team. And we're like, woohoo, we're on our way to accomplishing that. That's what we should be celebrating.
Wow. And I got to tell you, we're kind of coming up to the end of our time, but and I want to know more about how people could get in touch with you and the type of organizations you work with. But my listeners and viewers would probably not like it if I let them go and we didn't know what X factor is.
Ooh, okay, X factor. And I got the sun shining right on me now. I'm like, okay, I forgot to close the blinds here, so apologize for the brightness.
Perfect. We're talking about
coming
X
in.
factor
The
now.
X factor. Ooh, that's the way to look at it. All right, sun, come on in. So the X factor is really about getting to the root cause of the issue that you're experiencing. So a lot of times, if we're in a workplace and we're leading our team and we're saying, okay, there's negativity, there's drama, there's gossip going on, we can look at those things as the cause and the thing that we need to treat. But more often than not, those things are not the cause of the poor morale or low, workplace culture that you're experiencing. Those are the things that are symptomatic to something else that's going on. So what we have to do is stop putting Band-Aids over all the symptoms, peel those suckers back and say, okay, here's what we're experiencing culturally. Now, what is the true cause of these things? And then treat the cause. So what is the cause of negativity, drama, gossip? What is the cause of absenteeism, tardiness, and turnover? What's the cause of those things? And once we get to the true cause, it's like, bam, we know what we need to do to make this total transformation happen. And I tell you what, a transformation can happen quicker than you think it can once you know what your X factor is.
Wow. I got to tell you, I think the problem is not enough employee parties, right? I mean, and I'm going to tell you, I had a client that came to me, and they're talking to me in my HR consulting and training practice. And there's like, Chuck, you need to come up with a motivation program for our people, right? There, we need to have some parties. We need to have all this great stuff. And I said, wait a second, okay? Let's talk about that Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Let's go basic, right?
Yes.
And I'm working with you right now to get your paychecks correct, to get your managers to put in the correct vacation and PTO requests. I said, until we get that settled, like we can't get paychecks right, having an employee party is not going to be the motivation you think it is, unless we add the dunk tank in there where you're sitting in it as the leader, right?
As the donkey.
So, a little joke there, but yeah, I get the X factor. That makes sense.
Yeah, so it really is. And I love the analogy with Maslow's hierarchy because it's so true. And often, the interesting thing here is watch where your mindset defaults to. Leaders, this is where you are going to stay stuck. So if your mindset goes to a place of, oh, we have an unmotivated team, I'm going to bring in donuts on Friday, that's going to solve it, or that's going to at least make the day better for everybody, or give them a little bit of a sugar high anyways. That's a stuck mindset, in my opinion, because we're defaulting to things that aren't going to work. But if we could change our mindset to one that says, what is it that we as leaders have to do more of or differently to really experience an organizational change, then we're moving forward with a more empowered mindset where ideas are going to come and surface in terms of what do we need to do to get a different result. So be very clear on what are the causes and what are the effects of the cause, and really learn to treat the cause. And that's going to take you farther, faster than anything you've ever imagined.
Wow. Boom. Drop the mic. But before we drop the mic, tell us, Julie, what type of companies you work with? How could they get in touch with you? What's your ideal client like?
My ideal client is, I'll describe it as this, a heart-centered leader. And that could look like a number of different things, but I really love working with people who are connected or desire to be connected to their vision. They are people who are really bought in to what their purpose is and what they're leading their team to do. And they typically just have some difficulty, and they could be very well seasoned. They could be 25, 30 years, 35 years in it, but they just can't piece the puzzle together. But they have a big vision, at least in the back of their mind or in the back of their heart somewhere, that they once had, that is really driving and propelling them forward. So those are the people that I love to work with, are the people who can see the difference that they're making by bringing their vision to life. And maybe they once had it, but now because of a lot of strenuous situations, not finding the right staff, whatever it might be, they lost it. And we want to instill a sense of hope within them and really get them on the path of being unstuck and detoxing their workplace so their life, personally and professionally, can become dreamy.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So how could someone get in touch with you? Tell us and what that experience would be like.
Sure. So you can feel free to reach out to me, juliebartkus.com. And I know this will probably be in the show notes, JulieBart as in Tom, KUS. And there is a Getting Unstuck consultation form that you can fill out there and have a free session with me. And then what we will do during that session is identify the areas where you are stuck and discuss potential strategies that will move you forward. And I really look at problems and situations holistically. So it's not just about treating one thing and not the other. We really want to look at, well, where's your mindset? And how do we need to shift that and change that so that you can experience a different result? So typically people walk away from these sessions feeling very empowered and inspired just from that time together in itself. Because once you feel like, hey, I'm no longer stuck, now I'm like in this different energy, magic can happen.
This is fantastic. Folks, get unstuck.
Get unstuck.
Julie, I'll have all the show notes below. Julie Bartkus, thank you for being on the show today.
Chuck, thank you so much for having me. It was such a pleasure.